A rat in the ship. I looked closely, and it was the smallest dragon I've ever seen. The hum of the freighter Argus Dawn was a comfort to most of its crew. To me, though, it was more like an old clock ticking too loudly in an empty house, unsettling, insistent, impossible to ignore. I had been aboard long enough to know every groan of the ship's steel bones, every flicker in its worn lighting, every vibration in its underfed engines. That was why, when I first heard the faint scratching in the vent shafts, I knew something was wrong. Rats, muttered Ortega, the chief engineer, when I reported it. He barely looked up from his diagnostics console. Every ship that hauls cargo across the rim picks them up sooner or later. Stowaways, hiding the pallets. You'll chase it down, Peterson. That's what maintenance techs are for. I wanted to argue. The Argus Dawn had never once shown signs of infestation. Rats were almost impossible to survive in vacuum transitions without seal habitats. But Ortega wasn't the sort to listen. So, flashlight in hand, I crouched at the vent access and unscrewed the panel. The scratching came again, faint but insistent, deeper in the ducts. I crawled inside, the air stale and tasting faintly of coolant. My flashlight beam jittered along steel and dust. I half expected to see a whiskered snout or the twitch of a furless tail. Instead, I froze. Curled against a corner, half hidden beneath a loose mesh of wires, was not a rat. It was a creature no larger than my hand, scaled, iridescent in the flashlight's glow. Tiny wings pressed against its back, no larger than folded scraps of paper. Its eyes glowed amber like molten glass, unblinking, fixed on me with a strange intelligence. It hissed softly, a sound that vibrated like static through the duct. My mind rejected what I was seeing. I blinked, rubbed at my eyes. A rat. I whispered aloud, convincing myself. Just a rat. But then the thing unfurled its wings, and in the stale air of the vent, sparks of bioluminescent dust drifted down like falling embers. It was a dragon. The smallest dragon I'd ever seen, or imagined. The secret passenger. I should have killed it. Rats endangered the ship. Dragons, if they were real, could be worse. They were supposed to be extinct, relics of myth from old Earth, or exaggerated genetic projects long banned by interstellar law. But something in those molten gold eyes stopped me. Instead, I whispered, "How the hell did you get here?" It tilted its head, as if the question made sense. Its tail flicked, tapping metal. The creature didn't attack, didn't flee. It just waited. I reached slowly into my ration pack, broke off a corner protein biscuit, and held it out. The dragon sniffed, then snapped it up with needle-like teeth. Sparks glimmered in the air as it chewed. Over the next few days, I returned often, sneaking into the ducts during my off-shift hours. Each time, it was still there waiting. I began to call it Ember, for the faint glow that followed it. When I wasn't with Ember, I researched. The ship's database had nothing beyond scattered references to draconic myth and outlawed genetic engineering from centuries past. Nothing practical, nothing scientific. If Ember was real, it wasn't supposed to exist. But I knew better now. Ember was alive, and Ember trusted me. Strange events. It didn't take long for the crew to notice strange happenings. First were the power fluctuations. Small systems dimmed or surged at random, only to self-correct minutes later. Ortega swore it was a software bug. Then came the cargo anomaly. One of the sealed containers registered sudden heat spikes, though internal sensors showed nothing unusual. The captain brushed it off as a faulty reader. But the worst was a dream. I woke one night in my bunk, gasping, the image still burning in my mind, a vast derelict ship drifting among stars, its hull cracked open like a rib cage. Inside, coiled in darkness, were dragons far larger than Ember, hundreds of them, silent, watching, waiting. When I stumbled into the ducts later, Ember looked at me as though it knew. Discovery. It happened on our approach to the abandoned mining station of Carthes 9. We had been sent to scavenge parts, stripping the skeleton of the old outpost. But as we docked, the power grid shuddered again, lights flickering. The captain growled through the comms. "Peterson, Ortega, check it. I don't want to lose thrusters in a dead station." I followed Ortega down to the auxiliary core. He was muttering curses, running diagnostics, when a sound caught my ear, a faint flutter like paper wings. I froze. Ember darted across the room, vanishing into the shadows of the conduits. Ortega didn't notice, but the system did. The auxiliary core surged, screens flashing symbols I didn't recognize. Not numbers, not code, patterns, fractals, almost like language. And then from the comm panel, a voice, metallic, broken, yet unmistakable. We are not gone. Ortega jumped back. What the hell was that? But I knew. Ember sat on the console, its golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. The derelict ship. We boarded Carthes, 9 cautiously, weapons drawn. The mining station was derelict, its halls filled with silence and drifting dust. But as we explored, I felt a pull, an instinct guiding me deeper. Ember rode my shoulder, wings twitching, its warmth steady against my neck. We reached the main hangar, and that was when we saw it. Docked inside, hidden within the collapsed framework of the station, was a ship unlike any I'd ever seen. Vast, organic in design, its hull curved like bone and sinew. Symbols glowed faintly across its surface, identical to those I'd seen on the auxiliary screens. The captain ordered us back immediately. This isn't ours to touch. We reported to Central. But Ember leapt from my shoulder, wings flaring, and darted into the alien vessel. Against orders, I followed, secrets unveiled. The inside of the alien ship was alive. The walls pulsed faintly, veins of bioluminescence running through them like blood. As I walked, images flickered in my mind, not my own thoughts, but memories of another age. Dragons soaring through nebulae, guiding ships across star lanes, bonded to human navigators. Ember glowed, brighter, the deeper we went. At the heart of the vessel, we found it, a massive chamber filled with pods. Inside each, curled in sleep, were dragons, hundreds of them, their scales shimmering faintly, waiting. One pod was empty. Embers. The truth struck me like a blade. These weren't vermin, weren't myths. They were symbiotes, partners of forgotten age, erased from history, hidden away when fear and war consumed them. Ember hadn't been a stowaway. Ember had been searching for us. Betrayal. Not everyone saw it that way. The captain's face twisted with greed. Do you know what this is worth? Genetic markets, weapons research. This is power, enough to buy worlds. He ordered the pod seized, towed back to Central for dissection. I stood in his way. They're alive. They're not ours to sell. Step aside, Peterson, he snarled. But Ember hissed, wings flaring, sparks filling the air. And the ship itself seemed to awaken. The walls pulsed brighter, the pods thrummed, and the air vibrated with the deep growl of awakening dragons. The crew panicked. Weapons fired. Energy bolts struck the living hull, which healed instantly, shrugging off the assault. And then the pod began to open, awakening. The dragons emerged, larger than Ember, their eyes glowing with ancient light. They spread their wings, filling the chamber with heat and radiance. The captain tried to order retreat, but it was too late. The dragons did not attack, not directly. Instead, they filled our minds with visions, the wars that had once driven them into hiding, the betrayals of mankind, the centuries of silence, but also hope. They had waited for humans to return, not as masters, but as partners again. And Ember, smallest of them all, was their messenger. The choice. The captain refused. He drew his pistol, aiming at Ember. I moved faster. The shot grazed my arm, but I tackled him, slamming him against the living wall. His gun dissolved into molten slag as the ship absorbed it. Listen to them, I shouted. They're not our enemies. For a moment, silence. The dragons watched, their eyes like suns. Then the captain spat at me, snarling, "You're a fool." The largest dragon lowered its head, eyes burning. A single puff of flame consumed him, leaving only ash. I stood trembling, but I understood this was a beginning, not an end. A new dawn. When we returned to the Argus dawn, we were not the same. A handful of crew had fled in escape pods. The rest of us, those who had felt the bond, stayed. Ember perched on my shoulder. But now, I felt not just its warmth, but its thoughts, brushing against mine like a second heartbeat. The dragons did not remain in hiding. Their ship, alive once more, unfurled vast wings of light and rose from Carthes 9, vanishing into the stars. But not before leaving us a message. We will return. Together, we will guide the stars again. and then they were gone. Epilogue. Now, as I sit in my bunk, the hum of the Argus dawn feels different. Not unsettling, but alive. Ember sleeps beside me, its tiny chest rising and falling. I know the galaxy will not accept this easily. Central will send fleets. Governments will demand answers. Corporations will hunger for profit. But I also know this. The age of dragons has returned. And it began with what I thought was just a rat in the ship.